Ladies and gentlemen, you know that every single year a company wants to reveal some shocking news that will shake the foundation of professional wrestling. This year, there has been no short of that kind of excitement, that kind of feeling, that kind of talk. What am I talking about? Well, I think one company that has been in third place, so to speak, has definitely made a impact, no pun intended on that one, has definitely dropped the biggest news story to end 2023. And that is New Japan Pro Wrestling just appointed a brand new president and representative of directors for that company. As you know, Obhari was the president for the past 3.5 years, so to speak. He's been with the company for around 5 years. But now it's time for him and his second in command, which I cannot remember the name at the moment. Both of them will be stepping down. And as of December 23rd, they both stepped down. And New Japan Pro Wrestling has appointed the ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi, as the new New Japan Pro Wrestling president and representative of directors. This is huge news. This is great for New Japan Pro Wrestling. This is great for the state of Japanese wrestling and all the partnerships and everything, because it is wonderful. It makes you feel, having hope and peace and seeing the light. Tanahashi brought New Japan Pro Wrestling out of the darkness on so many multiple occasions. And this is such a better fit for Tanahashi. As Tanahashi, gets up there in age, his knees were probably yelling at him, being like, we can't take this anymore. And to be honest, as much as I love and respect Tanahashi, and you know that he has that leader spirit inside of him, that his body was just like, we can't do it anymore. He was struggling to at least have some good matches with, I know that he's probably in pain as he, has some of these matches. And I think that this is a good role for him. This is a good fit for him. And everyone has his respect. Everyone in New Japan Pro Wrestling and the wrestling world was shaken and taken by surprise with this news dropping late last night if you're over here in the States. But if you're over there in like Japan and Europe and those countries, you got it bright early in the morning as news. All of us over here in America has definitely gotten that like last night. And Obhari also mentioned that while he was the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling, he oversaw New Japan Pro Wrestling operations and New Japan of America operations as well. So because he is stepping down from those two departments, Tanahashi will now be the leader, the CEO, the main person, the president of those two departments, which is amazing. It really, really is. There will be a lot more details about all of this coming to my newsletters, and then also during the Wrestle Kingdom wrap up as well, the Wrestle Kingdom review that's coming up soon in the new year. Tanahashi will be giving his first speech at Wrestle Kingdom this year. And I will have all the details there and just recount the stuff that's happening. This is amazing. This is great for professional wrestling. This is great for everyone else. Now, as much as I love this idea that Tanahashi is the president, and to say that Tanahashi is your boss is not only weird, but it's also like amazing at the same time. It's one of those things of like, you have to get used to it, because you wouldn't think that, wrestlers will step into that role. Even though we have like Triple H as head of creative, and, Triple H is doing a wonderful job. But that was kind of to be expected anyway, that Triple H would step into that role. This is more like, oh my God, it's Tanahashi. It's the ace. You would think that a guy like him would try to wrestle his, to his very last days, even if his body is giving up. Like, he's that type of strong spirit that he does it for the fans. The fans keep him going. He keeps himself going. The young talent definitely keeps him going, but it's definitely kind of, weird I don't want to keep using the word weird, but it's different to hear that a wrestler has decided to step into that role. Now, I do know that there might be fans out there that will say, "Oh, well, back in the day, from old school wrestling, there were wrestlers that did step into like the booker role or the promoter role, so it's nothing new." And I totally get that because I am an old school kind of girl when it comes to professional wrestling. I get that. But that hasn't been done in like how many years? So it's kind of like having to think about it, accept it, and like wake up the next morning and being like, oh my God, this is real. Tanahashi is the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, I do want to point out and say right here in this podcast episode that, it's probably, this isn't going to end, season 4, because I still have to give you guys the MLW interviews, which I will upload soon. I'll upload them after Christmas, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're still talking about Tanahashi and New Japan and the whole him being a president for the company. So this is what I see. This is what I'm going to predict in the future. By no way, shape, or form is this insider knowledge. This is just observing the industry. And for as long as I've been watching the industry and now work in the industry, this is just my predictions of like what I see going forward. Tanahashi seems like the most stand-up guy where, he probably doesn't take shit from people, but will listen to thoughts, ideas, maybe even arguments, like both sides and like perspectives and stuff like that. He has that type of thing of like, let me hear you out type of thing. Now we know that New Japan Pro Wrestling has the partnership with AEW. I really do think that things might start changing in the way that AEW uses the New Japan guys, or the way that AEW, specifically Tony Khan, tends to just swipe up and sign the New Japan guys as if like there's no consequence to that. Because if you sign a New Japan guy that's currently in a storyline that's in New Japan Pro Wrestling, it fucks everything up. Like, sometimes you have to like see through your commitments before you can like go and jump ship. And to be honest, there has been times where Tony Khan signs a New Japan talent, and it's been it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, the way that it goes about it. The practice of it, the business of it is not how it should be. And, of course we have this thing in history where like, well, signings were not always squeaky clean. And that's okay. Like, I get that. I get that in professional wrestling. Sometimes signings are not going to be squeaky clean. I get that signings are going to be very jarring, all in your face. It's going to be mad weird. You're going to have like this bad taste left in your mouth. Like, you're just taking or plucking people away from something that wasn't necessarily finished. And, I do understand that everybody across the board, meaning across the world, should end up getting the bag, end up getting the money, end up getting what they are worth. I totally get that. But you can still do the same thing and still get the same amount of money if you decide to go and get yourself booked every weekend, or at least like, a good chunk of the month. Get yourself booked and get your name out there and get the reps in, even if you think you might not need it. But sometimes if you want to create a strong following and for people to know you outside of like New Japan, if New Japan is not booking you, you have the opportunity to invest in yourself. You have the opportunity to do whatever the hell you want to do, especially on the internet. The internet gives you free range to do what you want to do. You want to start trying to stream and talk about your matches and have like sit down classes with your fans and be like, oh yeah, I love this match because of X, Y, and Z. Oh, this match here was, wasn't very special because of this story, or I have, this behind the scenes stories to like share with you. As much as fans want like the behind the scenes, you should like give them something, not everything. But, there are ways now for wrestlers to make money that's not about taking bumps as much. There's ways to go about it because like you have a name, you're established, you're still part of a company, but you can offer services. You can, work on your hobbies that will become maybe a full-time, like, passive income. If, like, you're an artist out there, if you're a writer out there, if you have some type of hobby that you've been putting on the back burner, there are different ways that wrestlers can still make money that don't necessarily have to take bumps. But that doesn't mean that you stop training, and then the day that New Japan calls you or a company calls you and they're like, hey, can you wrestle for our company for these amount of days? You see what I mean? So sometimes, like, I get it. It's scary. It really is. And I say this because I'm a content creator and I'm also a freelancer, and I do the podcasting, I do the interviews. I try my very best to try to make it to all my shows that I'm ever booked on. And if you ever want to help me, there are ways to do that. You can reach out via email, squarecirclepodcast@outlook.com, or you could just easily sign up at my Fourth Wall website, which I'll explain a little bit later in this podcast. But there are ways to make money that sometimes doesn't have to be involved in a bump. And then as you take that little break, and when you come back and you're energized, you'll be putting on greater performances. You'll be the talk of the town, and you'll feel right. Like, you don't want your body to collapse on you if all you're going to do is go 0 to 100 to try to get booked all the time without taking that rest. And, sometimes I think that, when wrestlers decide to take a rest, they may feel that they are irrelevant when they come back. Guess what? Everybody has a career resurgence, if that's a word, but you know what I mean. Most people come back with the idea that they're going to be one of the best after they have a rest. And sometimes it comes true, sometimes it doesn't. But I think we're getting completely off track here for what I'm trying to say, or my original point. But I do think now that Hiroshi Tanahashi is in the position that he's in, Forbidden Door might be in trouble. Because Tanahashi has a very old school way of thinking. He has a very traditional way of thinking when it comes to wrestlers, heels and baby faces, and also the way matches go, the way stories are told. Like, it's very traditional, and this is based off of the information that I'm told when I talk to several wrestling buddies in the wrestling industry. And that's just the way that his mindset and philosophy is. So Forbidden Door might be in trouble because Forbidden Door now might just end up being like a spectacle, like it should be. Because let's be honest, I said this before for the first Forbidden Door thing, and you guys meaning Twitter, fucking dragged me on it. And I'm gonna say it again. Are you really going to remember the matches after Forbidden Door is done? Does anybody remember the matches for Forbidden Door 2? Does anybody remember the matches for Forbidden Door 1? No, because no one on the timeline talks about it. No one made like an edit video of like, here are the highlights, so let me put it up every so often to remember people or remind people that Forbidden Door happened. No, you guys don't remember it. So it's sort of like now Forbidden Door needs to be a spectacle, because I don't want to like compare it to like WWE WrestleMania, but like you could probably tell me more moments in WrestleMania history than like the Forbidden Door history, even though there's only been 2. But that's neither here nor there. I'm looking at it from a event point of view where it's like, can you tell me what happened in these events versus like how many events, because people don't remember the event name sometimes, but they remember the moments, they remember the emotions, they remember what they felt that night when they watched a big event like the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, and that's the point I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to get that, Forbidden Door should have a story behind it. Forbidden Door should not just be random fucking matches and you have like one that's like a half-ass story. That should not happen. AEW should not be the lazy route when it's on national television. When you're on national television, you made it. That's it. You made it. If you're still in the indies, you're trying to make it. And sometimes on the indies, you feel good at where you're at, which is not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just neutral. But you always want more when you're on the indies, right? So when you finally get to TV, it has to be a version above what you would present on the indies, but AEW still tends to present things that will be on the indies. And then it just feels like, again, there's nothing breathable. There's nothing to really acknowledge. And I think that this partnership between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling is either going to fall because New Japan is not getting the better part of the benefits of being in this partnership with AEW, the same way that Impact didn't really get the best out of that AEW partnership at all. And it's kind of sad that, like, some people would, just, I don't want to say go into business for themselves, but that's what it feels like. It happens now that we have a new president and, would want to work like New Japan dates and come over as an AEW guy. But in reality, like, the partnership between New Japan and AEW, I just don't think it works. It really doesn't. It hasn't been beneficial on both sides at all. I know that on the New Japan World website, Japanese fans can watch AEW Dynamite, but there's no rumblings about it. I don't know what the percentage is of Japanese fans knowing certain wrestlers from AEW if they're not a big name like Chris Jericho, or that's about it. I don't know if anybody as a Japanese fan will know MJF. Maybe they would. I don't know. But the point is that I think now that Tanahashi is in this position of power, the partnership between them and AEW, like I said, might do one of two things. It might fall, or it might be strengthened to where it makes sense, and both companies are being beneficial to each other in this partnership. I personally want New Japan to strengthen their partnership with Impact Wrestling. I want New Japan to strengthen their partnership with MOW. And I want New Japan to strengthen their partnership with all the rest of the indies and all the rest of the other promotions. Because when everybody is doing well across the board, everyone gets money. Everyone has more chances to get their name out there. The thing is that, who's going to run the social media for that? Who's going to put in the work to make all those graphics and try to connect all the dots and have all these interviews with these guys and stuff like that? Like, the good side of wrestling media needs to stand up and lend their help to make sure that New Japan Pro Wrestling and all the wrestling companies out there, including the indies, make sure they get a shot to shine their spotlight. So, with that being said, I know it's a lot, and I am just doing this off the top of my head. This is not even a prepared podcast episode, and I'm just doing it from my phone, so if you hear background noise, I'm sorry. But I just wanted to get this out there as an update, because it's very, very important to know that Tanahashi is the president for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I'm excited for that venture for Tanahashi. I'm excited for what New Japan Pro Wrestling is going to bring to the table, what they're going to bring to professional wrestling. And I'm excited that we get to live in this, and we get to talk about it, and we get to have conversations about it. Oh, and by the way, if you're not on Blue Sky, you guys should be on Blue Sky to have conversations about professional wrestling in a civil manner. I had a wonderful conversation yesterday on Blue Sky that didn't result in name calling or anything like that, no hostility, about professional wrestling and heels, baby faces, and New Japan Pro Wrestling influence and stuff like that. So get on Blue Sky, guys. Seriously. On Twitter/X, it's a dumpster fire of people that want to be right, that people will never change their perspective, that people always want to shove others out of the community, or just do things that aren't right, The internet created people to have their own pedestal, and sometimes that ego takes over and they're on their own pedestal, but they don't understand why, they can do harmful things or say harmful things. But then again, it's Twitter, it's X. I'm still going to be over there. But, come over to Blue Sky if you have the chance to, because the wrestling community there is a lot more civil from my experience just based off of yesterday. So, with all that being said, like I said, Tanahashi is the new president of New Japan Pro Wrestling.